Hey everybody, welcome back to Bass Lake Park. Steve Macklin here. We're going to do another mini virtual field trip lesson for you. Today we're going to talk about tree rings. Tree rings are neat. Tree rings are what you can actually see inside a tree, and you can actually count the tree rings, and one ring equals 1 year of growth for that tree. So you can actually age how old a tree is by counting the tree rings. It's a neat science and process. So what we're going to do, we're going to show you guys the parts of the tree, how we count the tree rings, different parts of that, and we're going to actually show you how we can measure some tree rings or count some tree rings. So let's get to it. Let's take a look at a tree.
All right, so here's a view of our tree. This is what we call a dissection or a tree cookie. We have cut this tree up and you can actually see inside and see the tree rings. So the neat thing about tree rings, there's also actually a science called Dendrochronology. This is the scientific method of dating tree rings to the exact year they were formed. Now this is neat. They can study a tree ring and they can tell us past temperatures, precipitations, climate, environmental changes. So they can actually study these tree rings and tell us what the weather and a lot of different things were from the past by these actual rings. So now if you look at the tree rings, there's a light band on the tree ring, and that is a spring growth. So that light band between the dark ones is a spring growth. Those dark bands are the fall growth. So now when we talk about the bands, the wide bands equal warm, wet years. The tight bands equal dry, cold years. So trees grow better in the spring, a lot more warmth, a lot more water. That's why you see fatter rings or wider rings. But then when they get older, they get really tight and really close together. So there's cold, dry climates, and that's just not ideal for a tree. So when we talk about trees and tree rings, there are 5 main parts to every tree trunk. These parts are the pith, which is the center of the tree, the heartwood, which is the inside center of the tree. It's kind of the backbone of the tree. The sapwood, which goes from the heartwood out to the bark, and then the cambium is a paper-thin layer between the cambium, between the sapwood and the bark. So the cambium is a living growth, and then you have on the outside of the tree the bark. So you have the sapwood, or the pith, heartwood, sapwood, cambium, and bark. Those 5 parts make up every trunk of any tree.
All right, so we've talked about the parts of the tree, the trunk and all that, and then we looked at the tree rings, a little more info about it. So if we have a standing tree, imagine this tree is standing next to me. How do I see those tree rings? If I take that tree and cut it down, we can see the tree rings just like on this piece of wood right here. But is that good for a tree? Do we have to cut down a tree to see the tree rings? Kind of hard. There are ways and neat things we can do. So if we have a standing tree, there's actually a tool you can use. It's called an increment borer. Now, this increment borer is a way you can drill into the tree and get the tree rings and actually count the rings from the living tree without hurting it. This increment borer will pull out a core sample, and then you can start from the center and count out. So now the big thing with this core sample, you have to get to the center of the tree and count out. If you count from here out, that's not giving you the total age of the tree. You have to get to the center, out to the edge. So we're going to show you how the increment borer works and how we can drill into a tree, get you an example of what the core sample looks like, and so you can count the rings of a living tree.
All right, guys, so we're outside by this nice pine tree. It's a pretty good pine tree. We're going to show you how you can actually measure or count the tree rings on a standing tree without even hurting it. And a simple way to do that, this guy right here. This is an increment borer. They sell these for foresters to use to actually measure or actually count the tree rings, so I can tell you how old this tree is. Now, with these, it gives you a rough age. Generally, you have to add 5 to 8 for a pine tree, but it gets you close enough to say, this tree is going to be X amount of years. So the way this works, you pull this out. We're going to set this down. All right, this little handle right here opens up. That fits into there. It locks into place, and now we have a T. And this is actually a drill. It's a hollow drill bit. We're going to drill into this tree and fill this hollow bit up with our core sample, and we'll be able to see the rings inside this tree. So let's start drilling and see what we get. And remember, you have to drill all the way to the center. All right, so now we've drilled into this tree. Remember, you have to get at least halfway through the tree. If we don't get that center, we cannot count those rings and get an accurate age. So we've got this drilled in the tree. We're gonna take our other thing, this is what seals it in and twists together. It's called the extraction rod. It's kind of like a hollow tray or a U-shaped tray that when we stick in the tube, it'll pull out that core sample. So when we put it in,
Now, the important thing is, once you do that, you want to back turn it 2 or 3 times. The reason you're doing this, we're going to pop that sample off, because if you don't, sometimes you can pull it out and that sample will not come off. So when we pop it off and back turning it, we'll have a sample. So zoom in and we'll see if we got a good sample. All right. And now, this is our sample. We're missing a little bit of it. It's actually stuck in this tube. So once we unscrew this, we'll pop it through and push out the piece we're missing right here. So we'll go ahead and get this out, pop out the sample. We'll bring it back inside and we'll show you guys this up close core sample we just took out of this tree, and we can see how old this tree is. All right, guys, so here we have the sample pulled out. Now we had to add the piece over here we popped out from the log, or the tree. If you start here, you can see all the rings going down the tree, okay? And then right here, you notice that if we twist it, that ring is kind of going like that. You can see on this side, this ring is kind of going that way. If we flip it right here, imagine there's a dot right here and you can see the circle start to forming. That's the center of the tree. That is the pith of the tree. So it's important, you have to find that mark when counting a tree ring or a core sample. So you start here and you count all the rings all the way out to the edge, and that will give you an accurate or a good estimate within, like I said, 5 to 8 years of how old this pine tree is. Everybody, hope you had fun with this one. We talked about the parts of the tree, what tree rings are, what they're good for, and we actually showed you guys how to see the tree rings in a standing tree. So now the sample behind me, we kind of counted the tree rings, and we want to know if you can pause the video or get a good look at it, count them, see what you came up with. Hope you had fun, guys. Come back and see us again for the next one.